There is a silence that sounds like a person. Not the peaceful kind, not the finally some quiet kind. The kind that hums with all the things that used to happen in a room and don't anymore. The empty room they left behind is not just four walls and a floor. It is a museum of a life that used to touch yours every day. Maybe it's a bedroom that still smells faintly like them. Maybe it's a living room chair no one sits in now. Maybe it's an office, a workshop, a corner at the table, a space on the sofa, a side of the bed. Maybe it's an entire house that echoes in a way it never did before. At Christmas, that empty room becomes almost unbearable. Because while the world puts lights in windows and people gather around trees and tables, you have a different center of gravity. A doorway you stand in, looking at a space that feels both familiar and wrong. You tell yourself it's just a room, but your body disagrees. Your chest tightens as if you've walked into a memory. Your throat stings with words you don't say. Your eyes scan the surfaces, stopping on things that used to be invisible because they were so ordinary. The dent in the cushion where they used to sit. The mug they always left in the same spot. The books still on the shelf in the order they liked. The jacket on the back of the chair. The slippers by the bed. These objects are not just objects anymore. They are stand-ins, fragments, proof. They were here. They really existed. You didn't imagine them. Psychology calls this a continuing bond. The relationship doesn't disappear when the person does. It lives on in places, habits, belongings. The empty room is one of the clearest examples of that bond, and one of the hardest to look at. You might avoid it. Close the door. Walk past quickly. Promise yourself you'll deal with it after the holidays. Or you might find yourself drawn to it, against your own logic. You stand in the doorway without knowing how long you've been there. You walk in and sit on their bed, their chair, their side. You open drawers, then close them again, without touching anything. You are trying to negotiate with reality. If I leave everything as it is, maybe it won't feel so final. If I change everything, maybe it won't hurt so much. If I don't go in there, maybe I can pretend for a few hours that nothing happened. If I go in there often enough, maybe the pain will soften. None of the options feel right. All of them hurt in different ways. People around you have opinions. You should clear it out. It's not healthy to keep everything. Don't touch anything. It's too soon. Turn it into a guest room, a study, something useful. Keep it as a shrine. It's beautiful that you remember them. They mean well, but they are talking about the room as if it's neutral. It's not neutral to you. It's wired into your nervous system. Your mind has thousands of tiny associations. The sound of their footsteps, their voice calling from that space. The way light used to hit the walls when they were reading, laughing, working, resting there. Now the same walls are holding a different kind of light. Now the same doorway frames only absence. At Christmas, those associations are sharper. Because this was the room where they wrapped presents or hid them, where they wrote cards, where they came back to after dinner, hands on their stomach, saying, "I ate too much," where they changed into the clothes they always wore for Christmas Eve, where they watched the same film every year, where they napped after lunch while everyone else cleaned up. You see the empty space, and in your mind, the past overlays itself like a ghost. You can almost see them there. For half a second, your body reacts as if they might walk in at any moment. Then reality slams back in. They won't, and the room knows it before you admit it. You may feel pressure from outside, from inside, to do something with the room. Pack everything up, give things away, repaint, redecorate, move on. Or the opposite, preserve everything. Leave the imprint on the pillow. Leave the calendar on the last month they used it. Leave their shoes by the door, their toothbrush in the cup, their coat on the hook. Either way, it feels like a test you can fail. If you clear it too soon, it feels like betrayal. If you leave it untouched for too long, it feels like pathology. The truth is less dramatic and more painful. There is no right timeline. Your grief, your relationship, your circumstances will decide when, how, and if this room changes. For now, what exists is this, an empty room that isn't empty at all. It is overflowing with them. Their smell lingers in fabric. Their handwriting is on notes, labels, books. Their choices are in every object. This color, not that. This chair, not another. Their absence is in the dust that is settled on things they meant to finish. You might find it hard to breathe in there. Your imagination starts populating the space with what-ifs. They were supposed to sleep here this Christmas. They were supposed to hang their coat on that hook. They were supposed to sit right there and complain about the same family drama. You stand in the doorway and see not only the past, but the future that didn't happen. That double exposure, the reality of what was and the fantasy of what should have been, makes the room heavy. Some people will tell you, it's just stuff. It's not just stuff. It's a map of a life in freeze frame. The unfinished book on the nightstand, the reading glasses, the half-used cream, the photo they never got around to putting in a frame, the gift they bought and hid and never gave. Each object is a sentence they didn't get to finish. Christmas adds more sentences. The card they didn't write, the meal they didn't cook, the joke they didn't tell, the present they didn't open. You may feel an urge to preserve these things exactly as they are, as if moving them would erase them. Or you might feel the opposite urge, to box it all up so you don't have to keep walking into this collision of timelines. The conflict is this. Part of you wants relief, part of you wants connection. The room is both the source of pain and the place that still feels closest to them. So you circle around it, physically, mentally. You plan when you'll deal with it, then cancel the plan. You tell yourself after the holidays. Then you tell yourself after the anniversary. Then after I feel stronger. You might even feel ashamed of how attached you are to walls and objects. You might think, I shouldn't need this room. I should hold them in my heart. But human beings are physical creatures. We anchor our love in places and objects because it helps us navigate loss. An empty room is not a weakness. It is a natural point of contact. The question is not, should I be over this room by now? The question is, how can I live alongside it without it swallowing me whole? That begins with permission. You are allowed to have an empty room that is still theirs. You are allowed to leave it to one side until you're ready. You are allowed to go in on some days and avoid it on others. You are allowed to change it when you need to, not when others think you should. At Christmas, you might choose to give the room a specific role. Maybe you go in there once, light a candle, sit on the bed or chair, and talk to them in your mind. I wish you were here. This hurts. This year has been, I did this, I messed up that, I tried this, I survived that. You tell them what you would have told them at the table, over coffee, in the car. You let the room be a container for that conversation. Then, slowly you stand up and leave, closing the door gently, and you go back to the living parts of the house. You haven't solved anything. You haven't healed the grief. But you have done something important. You have acknowledged the empty room instead of pretending it doesn't matter. Sometimes, the hardest part is other people's reactions. They walk past and say, this room is going to waste. They suggest turning it into a guest room, an office, a gym. They mean practicality. You hear erasure. If you eventually decide to change the room, that decision often comes with an unexpected wave of grief. Packing books into boxes, folding clothes that still feel like they belong on their body, taking down a photo from the wall, moving the bed or dismantling it. Each action feels like a tiny funeral. Each drawer emptied forces you to look at pieces of their life in your hands. You may feel like you're killing what's left of them. You may have to stop midway and sit on the floor and cry. People might say it's just things, but to you, it's not just things. It's a final, brutal admission. They will not need any of this again. If you are not ready for that, it's okay. If you need to move slowly, object by object, over weeks or months, it's okay. If you need someone with you to witness it, it's okay. And if you never completely erase their presence from the room, if you always keep a few items, a photo, a corner that is theirs, that's okay too. You do not have to turn their space into something completely unrelated for your grief to be considered progress. The goal is not to delete them. It is to find a way to live with their absence without being pinned to one doorway forever. There is another, quieter fear beneath all of this. If I change the room, will I forget them? Will I forget how their clothes smelled? Will I forget how their handwriting looked on that card? Will I forget the angle of their body in that chair? Will I forget the way they made this space feel like home? The answer is painful and relieving at once. You will forget some details, yes. Time blurs certain edges, but the essential presence won't vanish because the room changes. Memory does not live only in objects. It lives in you, in habits, in reactions, in values, in phrases you catch yourself using and then think, that sounded just like them. The empty room is one chapter of that story, not the whole archive. Still, this Christmas, when you walk past that doorway and your chest tightens, when you glance in and see the bed, the chair, the quiet, know this: you are not strange for feeling talked to by a room. You are not weak for avoiding it. You are not morbid for entering it and sitting in the silence. You loved someone who lived there. They infused that space with 1,000 small daily acts of existence. You watched for years as they inhabited that corner of the world. Now you are left with a stage after the actor is gone. Of course it looks wrong. Over time, the room will change, whether you touch it or not. Dust gathers, light shifts, your life moves. Another December comes. You might hang something new on the wall. You might bring in a different piece of furniture. Someone else might sleep there one night. You might one day sit in that chair without feeling like an intruder. When that happens, it doesn't mean you've erased them. It means the room now holds more than one era of your life. The chapter with them, the chapters after. Sometimes grief never fully heals around places. That's okay. There may always be a moment every Christmas when you step into that room and feel the old ache sharpen. When you see them, for a heartbeat, sitting there like they used to, you might place your hand on the doorframe and think, this is the empty room you left behind. It broke me. It also holds proof that you were real, that you were here, that my love for you has somewhere to touch. Then you turn away, carrying that ache with you into a house where life, unfairly and unbelievably, goes on. You are not leaving them behind when you walk back out. You are doing what the living always have to do, moving between spaces, between memories and the present, between rooms full of ghosts and rooms still capable of holding new moments. The empty room they left behind will never be just a room. But one day, it might be something slightly different than it is now. Not only a wound, but also a shrine, a witness, a quiet corner of your life where love and loss sit together and no longer demand that you choose between them.